Hello, welcome everyone, and hello, Mark Freeman.
Hello, Anissa. Glad to be back.
I'm
Go home
so
week.
glad you're here. And this one is really going to be special, as amazingly enough, this is all about jump-starting your motivation and staying positive and productive in a pandemic. Difficult circumstances call for resilience and sustained motivation. And lessons learned from the power of habit by Charles Duhigg, Eat That Frog, Brian Tracy, and Man's Search for Meaning, Victor Frankl. Welcome, you guys. I'm so glad you're joining us. We feel so honored that you would choose to spend your time with us. We do want to make this incredibly valuable for you. So let us know your questions and what you'd like to accomplish today, and we'll see if we can't make that happen. Let's get started. I want to say thank you so much to our sponsors, the Whitmarsh Consulting Group. They are a group of super talented multi-channel marketing specialists who specialize in HR information technology, email marketing, white papers, research projects, you name it. Truly an extraordinary organization that works with our company, and I've seen them do wonderful things with other organizations. Also want to say thank you to Insperity HR, that makes a difference. Insperity was one of the first that I reached out to that said, when I said, I think we're going to do this leading in a crisis summit, and I don't have all the pieces together, but I'm looking for a sponsor. Would you be willing to help? They raised their hand just like Mark did. I'm in. Tell me what to do and how I can serve. And then I went back to Insperity and I said, would you mind putting something together that's free for our HR folks on the call that would be of benefit? And they went back to their team and came back with a free HR financial analysis report and debrief. Let me tell you just a little bit about what this is, because it's kind of a big thing. It is an HR budget analysis, confidential report, and one-on-one debrief. Organizations or HR will work with one of their business performance advisors and compare your HR strategy and budget against successful organizations, and then share that with you freely. Here's just the deal. They know that not every organization that might take advantage of this HR report is a good fit for what they do. And that doesn't matter to them. They just want to be of service. We know that HR budgets have gone the way of the dodo bird this year. Nothing is the same. And so if this could be of support to you, don't hesitate to take advantage of that. You can find out more at turnkeycoachingsolutions.net/HR report. And our final sponsor that I want to mention before we get rolling is our internal team of strategic planners. Put their heads together and created a data-driven crisis strategy and post-crisis strategy strategic planning and strategic alignment program to help organizations do the pivot, the dance that many of us are having to do of getting back to work in a very disorganized, chaotic, and still in crisis mode economy and workforce. So if you and your team would benefit from having a dialogue around what now and aligning your team around a new vision of what's next for you guys, it would be my honor to share a little bit about that with you and support you in that way. My name is Anissa Avon, and I'm the CEO of Turnkey Coaching and Development Solutions. We provide enterprise learning and development solutions. Since 2004, we've been on this track, and what I'm most proud of right now is our Leading in a Crisis Summit. We put this together in a matter of a very few days, launched it the end of March, and now we've got 40 plus speakers on the books. Go back to the Leading in a Crisis URL often, check out the new talks. It's every Wednesday and Thursday in April and May, and now we're getting requests to go into June. We'll see what the universe holds for us, but we would love to hear your feedback. Now, I'm super excited to have Dr. Mark Freeman back with us. Mark is a senior organizational development and behavioral consultant. His work in the area of performance management and performance improvement includes A to Z approach, from assessment and analysis to skills development to change management to ongoing organizational training and development and design, and even train the trainer. He's a consummate professional that looks at a truly a holistic approach when collaborating with his clients about how to change the very fabric of either support the individual in crossing their leadership gaps or their development gaps, but also from an organizational development design side. His approach always gets just raving accolades, and he's got a lot of fans in our company and with our clients, and I just can't speak highly enough of him, which is why I'm super thrilled, Mark, about your topic today.
Wow, what an introduction. Thank you. Well, I love you all too. You guys are great to work with. I got to tell everybody out there that Turnkey Coaching Solutions, working with Anissa, Sheila, Paige, and everyone, Wendy, has been the delight of my life. I feel like I'm part of a team, and everybody lives far away from here, but it's close-knit, and it's really exciting to partner with them on everything I do, and it's just loads of fun. I gotta say, it really helps get away from the professional isolation of being a sole proprietor. I love it.
I'm so glad. So what are we going to learn today?
Well, this is going to be, go ahead to your next screen. These are my favorite 3 books right now for this topic of getting motivated. And so I have to start from sort of the base, and my favorite author, and because he's in my field, Victor Frankl, the psychologist, studied with Sigmund Freud. And he believed that because Sigmund Freud was his mentor, Sigmund Freud taught that your childhood experiences were your destiny. And that's what you're stuck with. So whatever happened to you, determinism, so be it. That's what you were going to have to live with for the rest of your life. Instead, he went into a concentration camp because he was Jewish in Nazi Germany. And this experience transformed his theory, transformed his life, transformed many lives, because he realized, just like the virus, that everything is capricious. Because he would walk up in this line with these men, and we're walking up, and here was the guard. And if the guard looked left, you went to the gas chamber. If the guard looked right, you went to the work detail. And he watched people because he was a psychologist, and he was a person of, so here's this, how do you find meaning in hell when you know you're going to die or be murdered or exterminated? So he would watch people, and there were some men that he would look in their eyes and he'd know that that day they were choosing to die. And sure enough, they would go into the latrine, sit down and die, or run into the wire and get shot. But he could tell during that day that that's what was going to happen. And this oppression was so capricious, because one day you would just be moving along and someone would say, you're going to have to go over here, and that's the end. So how do you find meaning in a place like that? It's hell, right? I mean, imagine that, what we're going through, but imagine what he went through in that and still being a researcher. So one of the things that he really looked at was, what is, how do I get through this? So I got to tell you the story. So he's on what's called a death march. So walking outside in the snow, not clad well enough, with holes in his shoes. They were on these death marches in the snow. He was shivering and freezing, and he said to himself, all I have to do is put my knee on the ground, and the guard will put a bullet in my head, and it will be over, and my suffering will be gone. So he's bending down slowly to put his knee in the snow, and boom, he has this vision. And the vision he has is he sees his family at dinner after all the war is over, and they're all talking and chatting, and he's talking about how in the experience he found what his life and his meaning was about. And he's telling his whole family. Little did he know his family was dead. But that vision made him straighten up his knee and continue walking. And he took that vision and said, no, your childhood is not your destiny. You have a choice to choose life or death. And this is in my sphere of influence. They cannot take away my image of what I'm going to do after this time. And so that was in his influence, and that's how he survived camp, was making that decision to choose to live and seeing his dead family all together alive, talking post-war. So, wow. I mean, okay, so how do we do that? How do we find the same meaning in this experience? This experience is tough. It's very oppressive. You don't know who's going to live, who's going to die, if it's going to be in this nursing home, or it's going to be, with me or my family. So we're all behaving in this way where we don't know what the virus is. Very, very fickle. It does what it does. But the meaning that we need to find in this is to look at the bright spots in it. What are the bright spots in this? What's in my sphere of influence? The first days this happened, I was freaking out. At one point, we lost our power in the house in the first week when the crisis was going and everybody was Chicken Little, the sky is falling, buying all the toilet paper and all the paper products. I'm going, what's going on? What's going on? Do I get caught up in that? Or do I look for the bright spots? The internet went out and we were like, oh my God, is our society crumbling? But that wasn't in my sphere of influence. What was in my sphere of influence is that I wanted to get healthier. So I got my vitamin regimen going. I went to the acupuncturist. I had these treatments before everything was closed down. I walked 2 miles every day. And I said, I'm going to increase my lung capacity. I'm going to have much better airflow, because I'm in this dangerous situation. That was in my sphere of influence to do. And then the army of angels emerged in town. So we gave excess food to them, and that really lifted me up. Instead of being Chicken Little, is what can I do to help other people? Blaming is pointless and powerless, doesn't do us anything. So I saw that Anissa and Turnkey were doing these Zoom experiences, these webinars. And I said, you know what? That's what you do in times of crisis, is free work. You dedicate yourself to others. You bring whatever you've learned to the people, and you do it. You do it free because it's the right thing to do. And that's what you have power to do in this time frame. So that's really why I want you to think about Victor Frankl. What would Victor Frankl do? He would find the gold in the hell. He would find, the things that he had control of. One of his buddies in camp would take the bread they were given during the day, would drink the water, but take the bread and put it in the pocket. Put it in the pocket. And because he didn't want to give them the power of when he eats. He knew he was going to eat, and so he'd eat it later, just because it was important for him to have that freedom. So somebody just chatted that they lost 20 pounds during this time. I lost 15. My health is better than it's ever been. I use this crisis to do something good. I could have gone the other way. I could have gone toward death, but I went toward life. So I think that's the message in it, is that we all know as leaders and HR professionals, in a crisis is a dynamite time to make a change. Dynamite time. So that's why I love Victor Frankl. So I give you a short summary of it. His story in there is 100 pages. If you're a slow reader, it'll probably take you 2 to 3 hours. It's compelling. You're going to read it and be inspired, because the belief in that is going to make you feel empowered. I want you to take away from this hour to go and read that 100-page section of his life, and it's game-changing for you.
I can share a little bit of a personal story about Viktor Frankl. I've read hundreds of books, and I have 3 different audio book memberships that I belong to. And I can probably count on, one hand, the books that I can definitively say changed my life. And Man's Search for Meaning by Victor Frankl is one of them. And when I was 13, I had a pretty traumatic experience. My best friend died in a car accident. And, you guys know how it is when you're 13, your best friend is everything. My best friend was everything. And the long and the short of it was I was supposed to go see her. And I was a working kid. We worked 3 nights a week with my father, and every Saturday and Sunday. And so he told us, no, you can't go see her. You've got to work. And she ended up passing away. And on one side, I know I could have been with her. So there was always that thing in the back of my head. But on another side, I became pretty reckless, because in my mind, I made a decision that you should never let an opportunity pass. Never, ever. Be fearless. And I don't care what the consequences are. I'm never going to let someone else tell me what I can and can't do. And it was I recognize that's an odd decision to make about something like that. But that was what happened at 13 when I lost my best friend. I never know when your death is coming. And then in my 20s, I was a victim of a crime. And it was after that I found Viktor Frankl. And it was probably when I was maybe 21 when I read Viktor Frankl. And I had this epiphany that I'm not a victim, that if Viktor Frankl can come out of the Holocaust and the concentration camp with a will to live and a bigger why for why his life matters, and if he can forgive, I'm going to get choked up, if he can forgive his guards and the people that tortured him and the people that he cared about and killed his family, then how dare I, in my little crisis, not find meaning also. And so in times like this, I absolutely remember that lesson, because I'm not ever a victim, no matter what. And part of that is because of this man's work.
Thank you. That was really, really great. My own story about being in the 3rd grade at my school. We moved from Tennessee to, I may have told the story, to Chicago area, and it was culture shock. And I was in the 3rd grade and passed to 4th grade. And then when I was in 4th grade, in the first few months, I must have been struggling. I don't remember that part, but I must have been. Teacher called me up and said, remember it like it's yesterday, of course, when you have trauma. And she said, Mark, why don't you have your best friend, Chris McConnell, take your desk down to the 3rd grade where your sister is, and you're going to be repeating 3rd grade. So in front of all my peers, he and I took our desk down 2 flights of stairs into the basement, into my sister's grade. And there I was. So, I have a personal connection with this because I thought my childhood was my destiny. I'm dumb. And at 50 years old, I get my PhD. And I crossed the stage at University of Central Florida, submitted my dissertation for an award, and I got the best dissertation of the year in the College of Education. That gets me choked up because it took me 40 years to throw off that belief.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
That's Viktor Frankl. That is the spirit of him. Don't believe that you can't.
Yeah.
You can. You will. Whatever you think is going to make a thought that you can't is BS. You can and you will.
Best 100 pages you'll ever read.
In life, really. It's inspirational. So that is why I love that book, and Lisa loves it, and we want you to experience it, because in those moments and it's not your regular horrific Holocaust book. It's about inspiration. It's about thriving. It's about growing. It's about learning. It's about dealing with adversity in a very, very different way. So read it. Charge yourself to read it. It will blow your mind and give you thought and pause about what negative beliefs do I need to cast away in my own life so that I can move forward without having to blame or be a victim or be powerless. Life's too short.
Nice.
Okay.
Very good.
So I love that book, and we both are simpatico on that. So, you know, if you want to get through this whole thing. So another thing that really helped me out was Brian Tracy. Brian Tracy is the king of time management. But, you know, you've read a zillion time management books on big deal, this, that, and the other thing. And God, I'm so sick of time management books. This one's different. It's more about priority setting. It's more about putting the right things first. So what the heck is the title Eat That Frog mean? It comes from Mark Twain, Samuel Clemens. And he said, most prolific writer in American history, actually created the notion of American literature. So he'd get up in the morning and go by the pond and look in the pond, and he'd look for the ugliest, biggest frog and eat it head first, swallowed whole. And if there were two ugly bullfrogs in there, he ate the ugliest one first. Don't worry, gang, it's just a metaphor. But the notion is he did the hardest stuff first in the beginning of the day. He owned his morning. He owned his morning. And he took that morning and he said, I'm going to write for these 3 hours because it's like eating a frog. It's gross. It's hard. It's difficult. But after that, the rest of the day is gravy train. So easy. I've just done all the hard stuff. So that's the point of the book, is that the things that are of highest value in your life, you do when you have the energy early, okay? So that's it. In World War II, the U.S. Army had to cross the Sahara Desert. Well, doesn't that feel daunting? So what the Army Corps of Engineers did is they put oil barrels, those big oil barrels that are all known in Houston, big giant barrels that we all pay such and such for crude, those barrels that sit about 4 feet high and are about 3 feet wide, put them out 1 mile apart. And so when the soldiers and the transporters, all they thought about is, we're crossing one barrel at a time, just one barrel. So 1,000-mile journeys was just a series of one barrel, 1 mile. And it made something so daunting so available. So whatever huge task you have before you, chunk it down into one barrel at a time, metaphorically. So that really helps you not get, ugh. So here's how it works with children. I love this. So you try to get your child to clean the bathroom, right? And you go clean the bathroom, honey. Oh, no, no, no. What if you do the room rescue cure? You set the timer for 5 minutes and you tell your child, do whatever you can in 5 minutes as fast as you can. And then when it's up, you're done. So maybe the clothes go into the hamper, the sink gets swabbed out, the towels get hung back up. It goes off and more stuff is done in that 5 minutes than when you tell, go clean the bathroom. So those are some tips to do, is shrink it down, shrink the job down. Any child can do something for 5 minutes with a timer on, a little hand timer. So those are some tips for priority setting for kids to help them do hard tasks. This next thing says Michael Phelps coach. You're like, what the heck is that doing in there? Michael Phelps coach was brilliant. He decided in order for Michael Phelps to win 7 or 8 gold medals every time he competed, he needed to have a routine. So his day was micromanaged from the time he got up till the time he went to bed, with a series of routine habits that he did throughout the day. One of those habits during the day was swimming in a meet. And sometimes he would break the record during that routine. Sometimes he would do worse. Sometimes he would do better. Sometimes he would get the exact record. But because it became this routine that he did every day, every single day, day in and day out, guess what? When it came time for a real tournament, it was just another task in the day. It didn't have the usual anxiety or the terror or fear associated with it because he was just doing his routine, step by step by step. So I love that. It's a brilliant thing to do. What I've done in this crisis is I have my day very regimented. You know, one day it's I walk and run 5 miles. The next day, I walk my dog and ride my bike for an hour. And then I meditate. And then I eat a certain thing. So my day's been regimented. And I find, gosh, by the end of the day, I'm not bored. I had it full. I feel like I've accomplished things that matter. And it's great. So the other thing I love about this book is that you choose one thing that you do that gives you the greatest return on your investment of time. The story that Brian tells is phenomenal. Okay, so this woman goes to his workshop. You go early, and then 90 days you come back and he's the accountability partner, and you choose a goal, and then 90 days you see how you did. Here's what he asked people to do. This woman was a vice president, senior vice president of marketing for a technology firm in Silicon Valley. So stressed out. She went to this time management priority setting. He says, okay, write down everything you do during the day. So everybody writes down all these lists of tasks that are in their bailiwick to do. And he says, okay, now look at the list and choose the one thing on that list that would give the greatest ROI for you and the company. And if you did that to the exclusion of everything else. Now look at the list again and choose the second thing that would give you the most ROI on your time and circle that item. And now the same, do the third. And now go back, talk to your boss and say you want to do these 3 things to the exclusion of everything else because they will produce the greatest ROI. So she comes back 90 days later and says, I want to go, I want to raise my hand. And she said, I did everything you told me to do. I had 17 items on my list. I circled the number 1. I went through the list again. I circled the number 2 that would be greatest ROI and the number 3. And you promised that I would never come in before 8 and I wouldn't have to leave after 5. So I went to my boss and I said, here's my list. You agree that these are on my template for work. These are the 3 things that would be the greatest ROI. Do you agree? And he said, yes. Okay, I want to do those to the exclusion of the other 14. What? Are you crazy? You can't do that. Da, da, da. She says, it's an experiment. Let me do it for 90 days. And can you go to the boss, our boss, and see if you can get him to agree to allow it just for 90 days. Let me do it as a trial because I'm in this workshop and I really want to see if it works. So he went to his big boss. They came back and said, okay, here's what he said. Yes, you can do those 3 things, but you and I have to roll up our sleeves and figure out where we're going to put the other 14. She never came in before 8, always left at 5, doubled her productivity and got a significant raise. Because the adage is, it's not enough to do things right. You must do the right things. And the right things are the 3 things that give the greatest ROI. If you can get that in your HR department with your higher ups and say, what's going to give us the greatest ROI? And you negotiate where you can, delegate the rest of that stuff so that you can be the highest potential that you can. So what Brian says is 1% of Americans, that's wrong, are truly independent. It's 3.5 million because there's 350 million Americans approximately right now. 1% of people are truly independent. That means that you're not, you were independent, autonomous to yourself. You either work for yourself or you work with an organization and you truly feel independent because you're able to do your best work and do the things that matter most in your life. The other thing I like that he says is that the checklist, PPPP, which is prior planning prevents poor performance. I use that as a mantra for myself, the 5 Ps. Every time I have prior planning, it does prevent poor performance. And he gives you permission to procrastinate things, but they have to be low value items, things that don't matter. During my PhD, my house was vacuumed. The carpets were fantastic because I was avoiding doing the hard work. And so, but you really have to go, wait a minute, this is giving me 0 ROI. I got to procrastinate the low value items. So I love Brian because it's more about priority setting and truly becoming, having freedom, having American freedom, and having the ability to live an independent life. Okay, so next slide.
Very powerful. Also one of my favorite books, and also what I use for productivity. The first thing in the morning is I typically will write out what's the thing that I don't want to do that will produce the greatest results. I use that 80-20 rule. 20% of my activities will produce 80% of my revenue. 80% of my activities produces 20% in business. And if I can focus on the 20%, then I'm golden.
Exactly right. And what Anise is talking about is the Puerto principle, which is an Italian man who looked at it and he goes, wow, there's a weird thing going on in Italy. 20% of the people have 80% of the wealth. 20% of the people are PhDs. 20% of the people have successful businesses as opposed to, and they have 80% of the successful businesses. So this principle is really smart, and it's where the whole idea is. If you do the hardest thing that has the greatest value and return on investment, then you're in that 20-80 rule. You're following the thing that has the most value for you.
And right now, many folks are looking at, for example, finding a job. And what you said earlier about if you can focus on those 1 to 3 things that will produce the greatest results, you'll find then that if, for example, you're looking for a position, those 3 things to the exclusion of the others can produce really great momentum. And that's true for everything that we're looking at right now. I know some folks who haven't pivoted yet because they're busy with paperwork and other stuff. And not that that stuff isn't important, but they don't know what they're going to do when they get back open, and their business is not one of the businesses that people are going to spend money on, perhaps. And so focusing on the first things first, eating the frog now will produce the results that we really look for.
So I'm coaching people out of work, and I do that, and Anissa knows that, outplacement counseling and coaching. But one of the things that I love to do is help people see they have empowerment by doing informational interviews. So let's suppose I want to make a change into another career or move in another direction. I learned this early on in my 20s, is that somebody taught me what was in the book, What Color is Your Parachute, is that you need to do individual interviews on people that you love what they do. So I lived in Colorado, and I interviewed the coach of the Colorado Rockies hockey team. I interviewed a chiropractor about her job. I interviewed someone who was a director of residential life. I interviewed a minister. And these are all people who are in the coaching or helping professions, and they help me hone down. First of all, people love to talk about themselves and their career. So you're going in asking, hey, can I have 25, 30 minutes with you? I'd love to buy you coffee and just get your advice and pick your brain on what you do in your world. I really want to understand your world of work. That simple task of being able to get those meetings and have those experiences was fantastic, because it parlayed into a job shadowing for one day on the one I like best. And then that job shadowing turns into an internship. And then an internship turns into going back to school and getting a degree. It's just like, take it upon yourself whatever it is you want to learn or find out about a profession, do informational interviews. They're powerful. They're proactive. It's nothing like monster.com or, putting your name out there and having it go into this big pile of one pile and this pile because it has this or that. You're in charge of what you're doing. Informational interviews gives you the power back. You're active. You're not waiting for someone to call you. HR professionals are really impressed with that.
I love this. But Bettina says, I concur. I'm the queen of building relationships and informational interviews. I'm not a shy lady. I love learning, just waiting on that open door.
Yeah. So when you're active about doing it, you're creating you're creating your life. You're not waiting for it to happen. You're taking an active approach, which is all of what we're talking about here, whether it's Brian Tracy or Victor Frankl. What do you have power to do? Okay, so the other third book that I want you to read, oh, by the way, if you read Eat That Frog, it's one of those books you can read in an hour, and you may take different stuff out than I just took. It's filled with stuff. The CEO of Ruth Chris, I was working with them as a team, and I said, I'd like for your whole team to read Eat That Frog. And then we'll have a discussion about it the next time we meet. And he goes, wow, I didn't learn anything new from that book, but I put first things first from reading that book again. And all I did is read it in 1 hour. Mm-hmm. So book 1, hour to 2 hours, 100 pages, Eat That Frog. It's like very quick. And this third book is like reading a novel. And Charles Duhigg is one of the best writers, makes it so entertaining to read. It's like reading your best novel. You can't help but turn the page. So you got time maybe now. These 3 books could be game changers for you. What I really love about this is that habits form unconsciously. You just might be at the office and all of a sudden somebody has cookies out at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and you make a trip down there and you start eating cookies. And before you know it, you've done it 5 days in a row. And it's like 3 or 4 weeks later, how come I'm going down and eating cookies at 3 o'clock every single day? Oh my God, I wasn't doing this 3 weeks ago. Where did this habit come from? Okay, the notion is that there was a craving. There's a craving to get out of your desk chair and go socialize, like we're all feeling with social distance, to go socialize with someone. So there's this craving. And the cue was, getting a little hungry at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It's been 2.5 hours since I had something to eat. I got a cue. I got to wander. I got to talk to somebody. I got to clear my head. Cookies. I got a new routine. So my routine is I get the craving for social interaction, a little hungry. The cue is I look at the clock, it's 3 o'clock. I get up and I start my routine, which is to go down the hall and talk to the group that has the cookies out there, socialize, go back and get fat. So I've got a cue, I've got a routine, and I got a reward. I got a social reward, and I got something that was tasty. That was a habit that completely formed out of my unconscious. Well, you know what? You're never going to change a habit, but if you change the routine, the same cue and the same reward can exist. It's just change the routine in the middle. So if the routine is like, okay, I'm going to have coffee in the morning and read the paper, and then, my cue is get up, blurry-eyed, cue, drink some coffee, get light, read the newspaper, and then sit down and read a book for 3 hours. Nope. As soon as that happens, I'm out the door with the dog for an hour. Come back home, get on my bicycle, do that. So it's a new habit instead of just squandering time. Put a new routine in. That's the simple thing about the whole thing of his book, is that if you can't change the cues. They're genetic, they're hunger cues, they're social cues, whatever. And so the reward is the connection with people and the, tasty item. But if you change the routine in between, you can still get the cue and have the reward without eating the cookies. So the key to the whole book he talks about is this changing and rewiring the routine, which disrupts stuff. How many of you have done something in the last 6 weeks that has disrupted your routine in a positive way? Like an executive who says, we need a crisis to get a sense of urgency here. How many of you from this pandemic have trained your behaviors based upon the crisis because of fear and wanting to build it more? Just chime in with your chats. How many of you have done that? How many of you said, wow, this is an opportunity for me to make some changes? And you've made one change and it tipped to maybe 5 or 10 changes. How many has that happened? Chime in with your chats. Does anybody have that happen, or am I just talking to a wall?
Well, I know it's happened for
there it is.
On day 54, she says. Started writing her bag, 5K a day, daily yoga.
That's awesome. Yeah. See, you've already tipped a little bit, and that's fantastic. Daily Zoom yoga. Yeah, my wife's doing it right now. So what that does is that, I mean, you can change behaviors on anything that you want by changing that routine. And that's the power of this, is change your routine. There's an opportunity now because life's been disruptive. So fill it in the way you want it to, proactively instead of routine. Hiking, I love that.
Erica wrote that she has had intention, but has had difficulty following through. What would you say is one thing that perhaps someone that has had an intention of making the most of this opportunity, or hiking or biking or whatever, and just hasn't found their groove yet?
Okay, here's what I think happens with me, and what you're asking is that there's this moment of truth in your mind. And when you wake up in the morning at my age, you know, there's some aches and pains when I get out of bed. And I go, there's a cue. Should I climb back in bed and just chill out and wait for the pains to go, or get up and go to the front of the house and maybe, you know, distract myself from those aches and pains that go away 10 minutes later? So I think the moment of choice is the moment of choice that Victor Frankl talks about. Each moment we choose micro behaviorally to go toward something that's life-giving or life-taking away. So if I am a non-social person, then the challenge for me would be to go and do something non-social that's safe and comfortable. That's a death choice. For me, if I'm an introvert and I go out and socialize, it was a life choice because I got outside my comfort zone. So what I'm telling you is, in that moment when you either decide to go to the ooze of comfort, force yourself to go to the life choice. And it's really in that moment of truth, right when you wake up or right when this happens and that happens, you ask yourself, is what I'm doing a life choice or a death choice right now? Is this going to make me just feel comfortable and relaxed, or am I going to challenge and go toward an opportunity? And I got to tell you, it's moment to moment, in my opinion. It's moment to moment. We make a decision to go towards something that's enlivening and a little anxiety provoking, or oozy, comfortable and soft. I'm not saying comfortable and soft is bad. At the end of the day, I love that. But I want my day filled with life choices so that then I can chill at the end of the day. Michael Phelps, what did he do after all of this? Working his butt off with this routine. He got caught smoking marijuana and got into the public eye that way. I mean, there's a compensation in our human condition where we want comfort and safety and soothing and then challenge. I think you have to make that choice and say, is this a life choice for me to go this way or that way? The life choice is, I'm not feeling well. The life choice may be, I got to stay in bed a while and get well. So the death choice might be, I got to get up and do something even though my body doesn't do it and I faint. So it's that idea that you're choosing every moment of your life. Is this a life choice or is this a death choice? Just like Victor Frankl talked about. So I use that phenomenon with little micro behaviors. Do you ever do that, Anissa?
Absolutely. Habit stacking. If you've not read Mel Robbins' book, The 5-Second Rule, someone in our audience just wrote, right after a day of Zoom meetings, a hike is great for me. I don't stop to think about it, just put on my shoes and go. And that is the moment we stop to think about, oh, I don't feel like cooking a healthy meal. I don't feel like getting up at 4 a.m. I don't feel like going for a hike. I'll do that tomorrow. The moment we stop to think about it, we're going to choose almost by default whatever is comfortable, that status quo. Our brains are wired that way. And so part of what you're sharing is about, in building new habits, we're really looking for ways to fire those neurons in our brain, the neurons that fire together, wire together. But that requires building those synapses over time. And the best way to do it, as a runner, there are times when I'm like, I can't wait to get out and run. But I also know there's times I'm like, oh, another run. So if I get there, I'm doomed. So just like someone in our audience just wrote, one of my habits is just put on your shoes. I'm not thinking about running. I'm just going to put on my running shoes. And the moment I put on my running shoes, I'm out the door for some strange phenomena.
So it's really interesting. There's something you can do with yourself on something that's a difficult habit to change. It's called adopting the miracle question. So I'm going to tell you a story about a young college woman who was very, very bright, but she had, just so giving you some context, she was predisposed to alcoholism on both sides of her family through multiple generations. So she was really at risk. And sure enough, it's her junior year and she's stopped going to class for 3 weeks. Scared to call her professors, come into the counseling center, and we start talking about it. And she goes, I just might as well take a medical leave and drop out of school. Let's think about that. You're only 3 weeks out. Let's think about what that might be like, and blah, 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 blah. So I said, we talked about it for a long time. She got comfortable talking with me. I'd already known her from before because she'd seen me around campus and trusted that I was, smart enough to talk to her because she's very bright. And I said, you know what? I want to try something with you. I want to ask you this question and you tell me what would be different tomorrow morning. Suppose you went to sleep tonight and a miracle happened overnight. And this problem was completely gone. You were not here in this problem the way you're describing it to me. What would be the first thing you would notice in your behavior? And she thought about for a few minutes and she said, well, first of all, I'd notice that my room was clean. Second of all, I'd be looking in the mirror and I would not see bloodshot eyes. Third of all, I'd be putting lipstick on my lips. I said, okay, let's not do, you go to class tomorrow. You just do those 3 things, okay? Since that's what you think. And do you think those are too hard to do? Do you just want to do one of them? Oh, no, I got to do the first one anyway. I can't live with myself having my room being a mess. So I said, come back the next day and then tell me how you feel. So they had the luxury of being able to see her day after day. She came in and she goes, Mark, I woke up this morning, cleaned my room. I looked in the mirror. My eyes were not bloodshot, which meant that she didn't drink last night. And I put lipstick on. I didn't go to class. I'm still scared of my professors. That's okay. Well, let's talk about what you want to do. And we decided that what we would do is the 2 of us would notify her professors that she could make a connection by email with me to kind of like ease her back into class. So the 3rd day she was back in class after talking with her teachers, got herself comfortable with the assignments she missed, etc. And then she didn't drink for 12 weeks. She looked that way, dressed up every day, went to class, got caught up, and did everything. The miracle really did happen. And it's just exactly what Anissa said. She did one thing differently. She put lipstick on her lips. That's
Right.
it.
It
So
sounds
what we
simple.
started to do in the counseling center is we ask every student to come in, what's the condition of your room right now? And we'd ask them to come back after you clean up your room, and they'd say, oh, it's horrible. I don't want to do anything. I said, well, would you want to go clean your room and then come talk to us? And then when they did, it was like amazing. When their room was clean, which is like the last thing they should have done, not going to class, all of a sudden it paved the way to go to class. So I don't know what the secret sauce is, but if you ask yourself that question, you ask someone you love that question, maybe they'll come up with a behavioral formula of doing one thing different, putting lipstick on her lips that changed her whole life. It's like a domino effect.
It is.
It's like Anissa saying, you put on your shoes and then you go. I don't know why. It's just one small behavior that tips everything else.
Yeah. Well said.
So there's the tips. Do one thing differently. All I'm asking you to do is try one thing that tips the change. How many of you had in your life where you just tipped one thing and then a domino effect and maybe 3 or 4 other small things started to happen? How many of you asked you out in this question when you started doing something different, like taking a hike or doing a 5K or doing yoga every day? How many other little things tipped? What did you notice? Please chat in. What did you notice? Other better behaviors came about as just doing one thing differently. Please chat in and see.
I can share a very quick story. When I decided to open up my coaching business, it was 1997. I had an infant, and I was just offered this really great job. And I went in there and I couldn't get through my first day. I was just bawling because I had left my infant son at home. And so I came home, I told him, I'm sorry, I can't do this. I'm going to start my own business. And I came home and told my parents, who I had moved back in with them, this is what I want to do. And the long and the short of it was I didn't know how I was going to start it. So I just decided that I was going to put my infant son in the little buggy, and we were going to go door to door passing out business cards. Back then, nobody knew what a coach was. So I would have my card and I would say, well, I'm a life coach and I'm a corporate coach. And they would be like, what do you mean, like soccer? And I would try to explain, and people would be like, whatever. Okay, bye. Good luck. Got 0 responses from knocking doors, but somehow, some way, other people heard of me, and I filled my business by knocking random doors. So the whole concept that there are small wins that create a larger gathering of energy, resources, and a domino effect has never failed me. So yeah, it's kind of
That's awesome. It's just like doing that thing that means something to you is going to turn into something, who knows what, but you stick with it and try it. And it starts out as scary as door to door might be, and then it parlays into something else. It's also, you're practicing your craft already, explaining what it is. And here you are with this fabulous business where you're able to articulate every single thing about it. And here you are, and parlaying with other coaches, helping other coaches to work with other HR professionals, and kind of collecting all of us together under this one beautiful umbrella of turnkey coaching. I mean, look at where it starts. It's weird how some
That's
stuff.
Right. I want to read some of these.
I saw some of them. It's sometimes I'm sleeping better, I'm eating better, I'm
Yes.
exercising. Duh.
Isn't it amazing?
You exercise, you're going to start eating better, and you're going to sleep better because you're tired as heck.
Yoga, yeah, I think it's because the yoga is calming my nervous system down, but it might also be because life itself is slowed down. I was even able to stop the medicine I used to take to help me sleep and to reduce the anxiety. I've slept better during this time than I ever have. David writes, momentum shift happens when I get an important project, long postponed, finally started and nearing the finish line. I took the Gold's Gym Challenge, another person says, I took the Gold's Gym Challenge at the beginning of February, exercised every day because I'm a competitor and wanted to win. The win was a healthier me. I just can't stop.
That's so awesome. I think that, people have used this pain. And I love the slowing down thing, because that's another thing I wanted to talk about. I'm kind of excited about austerity. I'm kind of excited about cutting expenses. I looked at my credit card bills have gone down 50%. And we're not spending as much money, and it feels good to be like a CFO where you save more money and reduce your expenses, for being able to build up again after this. So it feels good not to be spending so much darn money. So going down on your expenses and eating better, all these things, these austerity measures, oh no, we're not going to be in the luxury life. It's great. Now I understand why my grandma and my mom and dad like the austerity measures, because that belt tightening, there's something about it where you feel like you're in control. You're not filling up your gas tank. You're not spending money. You're saving money. You're doing things. It's all within your mode. The other thing I love is that before this happened, when I'd say, hey, hi, how are you doing? Almost to a person, oh, I'm swamped. Oh, my plate is full. And I'd say, well, how come you're not managing your time very well then? How come you haven't gotten your arms around your time management? Because there's always enough time to do the things that matter. Why do you feel like you're over the top and too busy? This is helping us shrink that in and choose to do things that are meaningful, that won't make us, I don't want to go back to that. Oh, I'm so busy. I don't know how I'm going to do it all. I've got 50,000 emails and I've got this and I've got that. That's no way to live. This has really afforded us a really great opportunity to belt tighten, do the things that matter, and not be involved in superfluous things that throw us into busyness.
Great.
So anyway, you're going to have all of this. It's the same thing as all these PowerPoints you'll have to look at. And really, they're just for you to look at, because I want you to read the 3 books, because they will be game changers if you do have the time now, and you're partially employed or unemployed. These books are great jump starters for you. They're really helpful for HR professionals to, with motivation. The other thing is that free work is really what we're about. Think about Wikipedia. No one gets paid for that. They love to do that. If it doesn't require willpower and you're doing it for pleasure, it's fun. I would hate crocheting, but now my wife's picking that up again. Nancy's doing that, and she's got a whole tray full of these things that are all done. And same thing with raising children. Hardest job in the world, and you don't get paid for it, yet people don't complain about doing it. It's basically fantastic. So I'm just telling you that if it does require a lot of willpower, don't be doing all your emails or boring expense forms or some sort of tedious work that drains your energy on the front end. Do the things that will really matter to you. So anyway, these are just PowerPoints that give you tip reminders about what we're talking about. And, go for it. Read the books. It will maybe just validate that you're doing things right now in this experience that we're going through, and you're doing the best you can because you're putting the right things forward. That was my main aim in this talk.
You well said, Mark. Folks, one of the things I think that would be really helpful to take away is to, as soon as this is over, take a moment and write down your top 3 to 5 takeaways and put some decisions on those. And maybe it's just one decision, but something that I try to live by is willpower is strengthened when decisions are pre-made. So you'll see that I'm always sitting in front of my computer with these webinars, writing down decisions that I make. And it's in the act of writing my decision down that the dominoes begin to fall. It's not just an idea, but I turn it into some kind of a verb, some kind of a decision. And then I'm much more likely to follow through on it. So, Mark, this was awesome.
Good. I'm glad you liked
Loved
that.
it. Let's tell a few folks how to get a hold of you and why. Why would someone reach out to you? And I know you also have some specials that you provide to our audience. Tell us about that.
Well, my specials are affiliated with whatever the turnkey coaching solutions specials are. So
We're doing buy one, get one virtual training
Yep.
for corporate teams.
Okay, so there's that, and then there's also, I love, because my whole life has been working with people, as I feel that's where my sweet spot is. Individual, group level, working with teams, working with people who want to make significant changes or even small changes in their life or their business. That's what it's all about. Or moving a team in a direction that you want them to go, to get them more aligned with where you need them to go to realize the vision that you have. I don't think visions are pie in the sky. I think they're realizable. I think they need to be brought into fruition by organizations in a really systematic way. So anyway, that I just love doing all of that. I cut my teeth in college counseling for 20 years and see 6 students a day. So I got really good at sort of understanding people, I think, and worked in, actually did the 20/80 rule. The vice president of the college hired me 1 day a week to do work in the institution. And I love that more than the other work. So that became my 100%, going out and doing this in private companies, corporations, and nonprofits. So
Beautiful.
Anyway, if I can help you in any way, I bring a wealth of experience and a lot of energy into
a lot of passion for it. So if our virtual training or crisis management or leadership or competence would serve you or your organization, do reach out. Mark is also on our career coaching, career transition, and employee outplacement team. And we have a number of really good, affordable packages for organizations that are having to make the difficult choice of furloughing and letting employees go. Mark, as always, love hanging out with you, dude. Always learn something great. Feel like I've stretched my mind.
Well, we're even more simpatico now because we have the same favorite book.
Tell Nancy I want to see some of her crochet. Thank you, everyone. Y'all
Bye-bye.
stay safe and healthy. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you.